Jailbreak for the PS for allowing us to jailbreak up to 12.52, which also includes 12.50. So to new firmwares for the PS for that are now jailbreakable that previously weren't, and this is thanks to the Flow's new exploit, the Net Control exploit, which is dubbed the Poop exploit, which is the main jailbreak now for the PS for up to 12.52. And this was implemented by the developer 15432. So this particular version is known as the hand loader, and it's hand loader LP, which means labs and the poop splice exploit are included here. So to exploits included in the disk. So the jailbreak works the same as the previous one, where it's loaded via a Blu-ray disc, which means you can have both exploits included on the one disc. So the way it works is that if you're on 12.50 or 12.52, then the only option you'll have when you load the exploit is press X to load the poop exploit, and when you press X, it will run the jailbreak and run the new version of GoldHEN from the disk, which is version to point for B 18.7. So that will be loaded now. This jailbreak is quite unstable compared to the previous jailbreak, the Labs jailbreak. So if you're on a firmware below 12.50 and you run the disk, it will give you two options. It will give you the option to run the new kernel exploit, and it will also give you the old one, the Labs exploit, as another option. And that will actually be the default option. If you're on a firmware below 12.50, and then you just press X and it will load that previous exploit, which is more reliable. That's why I don't recommend updating to 12.50 or 12.52 if you're on a previous firmware. If you're on 12.02 or lower, just stick with that firmware, because you can still set up the jailbreak in the same way. You can still use this new hand loader, UHE, so that you can burn to your Blu-ray disc, and you'll be able to load both exploits from the one disc, including the older version, which is more stable. Definitely better to just set this up on your rather than updating to 12.50 or 12.52, where you'll be limited to only using the more unstable exploit. So that is why I don't really recommend updating your firmware for this particular jailbreak. Now beyond that, we did have a couple of updates. There was this forked version from a Lucas Leal dev. This version just tweaks the exploit ever so slightly, so that it does not require you to press a button on the controller. Once you load the Blu-ray disc, it will just run it automatically. So that's one option if you prefer to use that. Also, I've created an all-in-one version, which is this version, which auto-loads the exploit when the disk is loaded. But I've also included the main utility homebrew applications that can be installed directly from the disk, after you've got the jailbreak running from the package installer in the GoldHEN settings. And then also, it has the cheats, patches, and plugins included on the disk which can be copied off the disk via PS4 Explorer, or via the Easy Remote Client, which you can then use to copy that over to the data folder, and then use the PS4 Cheats Manager to install the cheats, patches, and plugins that you copied from the disk. So the latest GoldHEN build that's included with the hand loader is a new version to point for B 18.7. Previous version was B 18.6, but this version does not really add any new features. The main purpose of this is just to add support for 12.52, as well as support for test kit consoles on the same firmware. 12.50 and 12.50 to that is what this update includes. But Cispro has left a note saying that they are working on features. But this particular release, again, is just focused on supporting the new firmwares and test kits, as well as retail consoles. Now, if you cannot burn your own Blu-ray disc, there's already sellers on AliExpress selling their own pre-made discs that you can buy. They are pretty damn cheap. So you can just get one of those discs that already has the exploit written to it. And I'm not sure exactly which version they're using at the moment. They might be using the all-in-one version that includes everything you need on the one disc. Or they might just be using the regular version. But usually those discs are a pretty safe bet to be able to get the exploit if you don't have a working Blu-ray drive in your computer that you can use to burn your own discs. We also got a new release of PS4 Explorer version to 0.6 from Lappy. If you're using the previous version, make sure you update to version to 0.0.6, because this version now has full support for 12.50 and 12.52. Previous versions were not working on that firmware. You would only be able to access the sandbox location of the file system. You did not have full file system access. It would say 12.52 is unsupported. But if you update to this latest version, you can see we now have full support for 12.52. And I can access the root directory, and it is fully functional. So if you're using a previous version, you can just update it from the Homebrew store. Next, we have some updates to the Netflix and Hack project. Firstly, for the PS5, this has been improved. Now, the previous version did have some issues with the auto loader, which automatically loads the ELF loader once everything is loaded. So the idea is you run Netflix, and then it automatically runs the elapsed kernel and exploit. Then once that's completed, it automatically loads the ELF loader. And then you just need to send your payload to load the jailbreak. Now, the difference here is that those previous versions would often crash the Netflix application after it had loaded the ELF loader, which would often be fine, because the ELF loader would still be running in the background. But sometimes it might crash too early, and then the ELF loader would not be loaded. So that issue appears to have been resolved. There's been some stability improvements. So the Netflix application should auto-close instead of just crashing. And that makes it more reliable. Less likely that you're gonna have issues with the ELF loader not running when you load the exploit from Netflix. So the public proxy server does have those changes included. So you can just use a public address in your proxy settings, and then load the correct version of Netflix to have those changes applied. So that's been implemented there for the PS5 version. There's also now a PS4 version of the Netflix and hack project that has been implemented. So this particular version is just the userland exploit at the moment, although Labs is being implemented. But I don't believe it's fully working yet, however. This doesn't have as much utility as the PS5 version. It's more akin to something like the MasterCore exploit on the PS. For now, the reason for that is that you require a license file in order to get Netflix working on the PS4, which is a bit strange that the PS5 doesn't actually require that. Seems like a bit of an oversight, but really. With the PS5, you can just install the retail version of the Netflix application. And as long as your firmware is compatible with that version of the app, you will be able to launch it. As long as you have an activated account, and you'll be able to launch the application. It does not require a license. Whereas on the PS4, it's actually stricter, where these media applications require a license file. Just like any game that you would buy off the store. Even though it's free, you still have to, purchase it on the store as a free purchase. So that you get the license file linked to your account, which then allows you to launch the Netflix application. So without that license file, you will not be able to launch the retail version of the Netflix application to be able to actually use to jailbreak your console. So being on an older firmware, if you don't already have the license for your console, you're not gonna be able to access the PlayStation Store to be able to purchase the Netflix application. To get the license to be able to launch it, now you may see a lot of people using it and testing it on the PS4. But that's mostly people who already have previous jailbreaks. You can just install a fake package version of the Netflix application, which of course you can launch with a jailbroken PS4, and that will give you access to the userland exploit. But there's not much utility there. If to launch the Netflix application, you already need to have your console jailbroken. Kind of defeats the purpose. So that is the issue with, these media applications on the PS4 versus the PS5. Unfortunately, but technically, you could say this is still better than the MasterCore because the MasterCore exploit requires a game. That is not a free-to-play game, so you have to purchase it. Whereas the Netflix application is at least free. So that is one thing to consider. So anyway, that's what we've got going on with the Netflix and hack project as well. Now finally for the PS5, we have a new ETAHEN test build that has been made available by Lightning in the Package Zone Discord server. Since we're past the 25th of November now, the previous versions have expired. So if you're using an older test build, they will no longer work. You'll need to download this latest build, which should be good up until December 25th. So you can download this from the Package Zone Discord server. You can access the Discord link that Lightning Mods has placed there on Twitter, and then from there, you can just go into the ETAHEN public test channel. Go to the pinned section, and you will find the latest ETAHEN test build. If you're using the YouTube Jailbreak autoloader, you can simply create your PS5 autoloader folder on the root of a USB and then just add your updated ETAHEN.l inside that folder, and edit the autoload text file to include that payload. So it will load that version rather than whatever version you have pre-installed. Once you have the jailbreak up, you can then copy that autoloader folder via your FTP or PS5 Explorer to the data folder on the hard drive, and it will then automatically load that version from there, instead of loading the previous outdated version. So that is how you can get that updated with the latest exploits. And once you get the new version of ETAHEN loaded, you can then head over to the ETAHEN toolbox, and then go into the settings menu, and there you will find the overlay menu, which then has the new FPS counter toggle that you can enable. You can also change the position to the top right, bottom left, and bottom right-hand corner of the screen, wherever you want the FPS counter displayed. And then when you launch the game, you will have the FPS counter showing up, which displays your real-time FPS while running that game. And this is very handy for the 60 FPS patches and unlocked frame rate patches, so that you can tell directly if the patch has been applied properly by checking the FPS counter to see if the frame rate has been unlocked. So that's something that is now available in this latest test build. ETAHEN. So anyway, that is the general idea. So that's all I've got here for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed this one or found the information